Okay. So, before we start, I'll make a few quick intros. My name is Charles Okanya. I lead the consumer planning division in EABL. I'll let Louisa introduce herself in a few. But what we are here to take you guys through is pretty much, a continuation of the discussion that was here before, right? Where we had the team, being led by Kamau and, Jumbo Jet, Safaricom, and all that. It's highly in line with that particular topic. Before we start, Louisa, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thanks, Charles. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. EABL, we're a very fun company, and it's almost that time when we start asking, kila mtu ako na pombe? So don't worry, we have something in store for you after this. A networking session sponsored by EABL is going to be at the 15th floor. So look forward to that as we continue with the masterclass. And be jovial, we have a lot in store for you. Yeah. I handle community management. And it's a pleasure to be in front of you guys. Thanks.
Look at their faces light up when they heard. look at them. Guys. Okay. So we'll start, So what we'll take you through is, a discussion on quality versus quantity. And remember, these are marketers, so we would come to you with all the tech discussions and all that. But I noticed since morning we have a divide. So we have the tech guys, the developers, the engineers, the Oracle guy who was here. Is it Kennick? Right? And then on the other side, we have marketers, right? So we have something for both of you. We'll start with the first one, which is more on the tech. What I wanted to show you is a system that we have as Diageo, right? So EABL is part of Diageo. This system is called Marketing Catalyst. What it does is it picks all the historical information, like for the last 10 years or last 15 years, puts it together, and it picks minute information like rainfall patterns, like weather, GDP, how people consume, how people use data, penetration data, some from Safaricom. Picks a lot of, political seasonalities. Because, all these things, by the way, work together. They work together to give us a view of how people consume or interact with our category. So I'll let the video do the work. So this is for the techies. So introducing Marketing Catalyst, right? What it does, it puts together chaos into concept, right? If you don't understand this video, then there's nothing much I've done. All right, so how do you play this?
It should play. Disconnect.
Okay. The sound should be on. Yep. Okay, we can just move to the next topic. Are we okay?
Cable. It's cable.
Just bring back the presentation. It's okay. Though there are a couple of videos ahead, so maybe you fix it as you go. All right? Yep. Okay. Yeah, the sound is still not on. Okay. So, that actually is not why we are here. I would have loved for you guys to see the video. I would have really loved for you guys to see it. I think one of our colleagues who is here in the morning, she talked about it. Her name is Waidera. It's a smart system. Oh, she's there. Oh, our fan is still there. Yeah. It's an amazing system, and it's one of those things that you want to share with everyone, for guys to know that something like this really exists, right? Especially for the marketers. But remember, that's not why we're here. The reason why we are here is to pretty much debate and talk about why we feel, quality is very critical for any campaign development, all the way from inception to deployment and M&E, and measuring rather. So we have different schools of thought. We have those guys who believe in scale, being big, right? Being, massive, right? And then we also have guys who believe in depth. Now the truth is, there's no right or wrong answer to that. What we are doing, myself and Louisa here, is to demonstrate to you guys why quality is very critical. And remember, it was at the heart of the conversations we had in the previous session. And also, looking back in all the information and all the data we've had, we've noticed that the quantitative side of campaign development is our default setting as marketers, right? So that's why this debate is critical. Now, this is us last year, right? When the pandemic hit. Now, there are guys who made money, for sure we know. Clara from Safaricom. Clara, right? Vivian. I'm so sorry, Vivian. You guys made a lot of money, right? Load. Yeah, they did, right? Digital companies did very well, e-commerce and all that. But we were, we were in the trenches. Bars were shut down. Restaurants were not doing well. There were restrictions, right? So we had to take a step back and really think about what we need to do differently. And one of the things we discovered is that when these guys are coming back, digital is very key in how we'll navigate a post-pandemic world. Very, very important. Now, of course, more than ever, where I'm standing, I look at I have a very panoramic view of how the business works. And what we strongly believe is quality starts at the onset, when you're defining your issues. Vivian talked about being strategic, right? So when you're jacking all these conversations, you need to understand whether these conversations are best fit for your brand. If your brand stands for, something different, and the conversation is going this way, right? So you have to connect on your brand purpose, what you really stand for, versus what the conversation stands for as well, right? So at that point in time, it's very, very key to pin it back to what the business challenge is, okay? And then, asset creation, right? So we also need to aim for quality and make sure that, by the time we're creating our assets, in tandem with the business challenge, is connecting with the consumers, right? And then the next step is when you're deploying, okay? When you're deploying all these assets, what is the choice of platforms, right? When you're targeting your consumers, what is the budget distribution, and how do you embed quality when you're understanding your consumers? And then lastly, of course, you have to measure at the back. And then when you're measuring, again, you have to, prioritize on what is quality. There's a myriad of things we can use to measure. So you have to narrow down into what we really feel is necessary for the campaign. So quality must be omnipresent and the underlying principle across the entire campaign, from start to end. If you get it wrong in point one, it doesn't matter how good your campaign is. You will not address that particular business challenge. Now, so quantitative has always been our default business setting, right? Our default setting, rather. By the time we have an issue, we ask ourselves, how do we make sure that we are reaching as much consumers as possible? Which platforms will we use? How many consumers are talking about us? You know, if you are pushing e-commerce, how much sales are we making? But remember, all those are numbers, eh? So it's numbers, who, where, what, but there's a big gap. And the big gap is why. That's the qualitative side, right? So it's the why. Are we actually connecting with the consumers or customer for others, right? Are they actually viewing what we are sending out to them? Are they really, you know, are they seeing it? Are they engaged, or are they flipping? And then money. So Vivian and team may have the budgets to spend, but for some of us, we need to be as efficient as possible. And of course, we have ways of measuring all this. Louisa will take us through it. But we need to make sure that we are efficient as possible so we don't waste a lot of money. And then in terms of e-commerce, to what extent should we attribute marketing to sales, right? Now, of course, we can see conversion happening in the platform, but how do you attribute that back to marketing? That's a way of viewing quality, okay? And then at the back end, of course, influencers and publishers. The guys we've chosen must be fit for purpose. They must be in line with what our brands stand for, right? So there's no need of picking someone like who? Cartoon comedian for Johnny Walker, or, you know, or for Tanqueray, or for Cadbury's, I don't know. I'm just thinking. It has to be, your partnership has to be in line with what your brand stands for. So this is one of my favorite quotes, and Waidera knows, our former boss, his name is GVT, he always says that people use research and statistics as a drunken man would use a lamppost, right? For support rather than illumination. When you see a drunk man, it's at night, he's walking, right? Rather than using the street light to see where he's going, he'll use it to support himself, which is not the right way to look at numbers and stats. Yeah. So some of the common pitfalls that we make is we assume that tools and dashboards are suitable for insights. Those are just numbers. We always assume, when you see many numbers, you feel insightful and you feel like you're doing something, right? It's not necessary. We also assume collecting many metrics have any bearing on the success of the campaign or optimization, which is not true. We'll show you that in a few. And then use digital metrics in isolation. As much as we are in a digital conference in Social Media Week, let's be honest, it doesn't operate in a vacuum, okay? So digital has to be looked at, or rather the issue must be looked at wholesomely. And then when you don't have benchmarks, when you're reporting at the back end, remember, if you're not measuring it, you're not doing it. So a typical scenario would be, have you ever been in a scenario where you're hitting all your milestones digitally? You've hit your reach, engagement is good, your impressions are good, your conversion is good, everything is looking nice and squeaky, but the sales are not coming in. It's a very typical scenario we are all in. That means we are focusing on quantity and not quality, right? Okay. So, yeah. Louisa will take it from here.
Yeah, so I think based on what Charles has taken us through, we have realized that there's a huge, huge importance in measuring our campaign performance. And this is where now quality and quantity comes in. So I think I'll start with quantity. And by measurement, it's the amount of something. So whatever your objectives are, you're measuring the amount of each. And so how then do you choose what metrics you use to evaluate your campaign performance? What KPIs are you going to set? And honestly, my advice would be that you need to focus on the objectives and how they can help you achieve the return on investment, right? So we're going to look at some of these metrics. So we're just going to start with reach. So reach is the unique number of people who have seen content on a particular platform. So if you put out a Facebook ad today, selling shoes, for example, and you circulate and it has a budget behind it, and it gets to, over 50,000 people have seen your ad, that is your reach. Yeah, I hope you guys understand. And then we have impressions. Impressions is the number of times your ad has been served on a particular platform. Now I need you guys to understand that reach is unique, whereas impressions is not, right? So you might have served that ad on Facebook from your platform, and then on the same platform, because I like your brand, I share it on my page, right? So maybe someone who had seen it on your brand has also seen it on my page. So that counts as impressions. So it's not really unique. And then we have mentions. So mentions are how many people are talking about your campaign or your brand. And you can track it using different ways, and one of the ways we do at EABL is using hashtags. So it's very important when you're having your campaign, use hashtags that are relevant to the campaign itself. Otherwise, you might get lost within the community itself. Because, if I put in today a hashtag, Feel Good Friday, there's a whole community globally tweeting or talking about Feel Good Friday. So how do you then come up with hashtags that are very, connected to your brand? That way it makes it easier for tracking your mentions. And then we have sales. Oh, sales. We all want to make sales at the end of the day. So sales, of course, is, how much can you attribute? And in this forum, because we're talking about the digital space, how much of that can you attribute on e-commerce, whatever platform it is that you're using? Yeah. So I want to give you a fun fact. Did you know that social commerce is a trend that is growing rapidly? I hope you did. If you don't know, I have data to back this up. In China alone, 2020, 300 million social buyers contributed to 11.6% of the overall retail e-commerce sales. Imagine. Isn't that a good number? How many companies are doing social commerce? Yeah. So we have a huge space. Yeah, I've seen one guy. Yeah, trendsetters. I love it. So we need to jump on these trends before, we're left behind. So find out more about social commerce or meet me when we're networking. We can talk about it more. So other metrics you can use to measure, we have website clicks, we have click-through rates, we have downloads, response rates, bounce rates. There's so many ways you can measure quantity for your campaign. So we're going to talk about the tools. And before I talk about the tools, I want to leave you with a quote by Abraham Maslow that says, in any given moment, we have two options: to either step forward into growth or step back into safety. So most of our companies, when we are approached by maybe consultants or an agency, and it comes and approaches you and tells you, you need to start tracking your performance. There's this tool that you can use. Then you go, the first question you ask, how much is it? You don't even know what it does, but you ask, how much is it? Yeah? And then you find out it's expensive. You have to spend in order to get money. So don't be afraid to step into these new tools, that are coming up, because they're really going to help you come up with the insights and the data that you actually need to form your strategies. So we have, we use Facebook Insights. You can use the Ads Manager as well. That also does have insights. We have Twitter Analytics, have YouTube Analytics, we have Google Analytics. Almost all these platforms that we use to market have a backend where you can actually go and see how your content is performing, what is your audience saying about you, and we'll look at that more when we move into the quality side of it. And we also, so at EABL, we have a social listening tool called Sprinkler. Comes in handy, it's social intelligence. It gives you all those metrics we've talked about. We've talked about the reach, the mentions. It even gives you the engagement and whatnot, everything. So it's a combination of basically quantity and quality. So let's move into quality, right? Yeah. So when we come to quality, we're looking at how then you can measure so much, but how do you use what you measure to form strategies that actually make sense and drive your objectives that enable you to reach your ROI? So it's a continuous chain. And for us, we use metrics such as engagement. So engagement is how often is your content being interacted with. So is it, for example, is it through comments? And what we like very much at EABL, as much as we do appreciate whenever our content is getting likes and comments, is our content shareable? Our marketing director told our team called DigiTribe, if you're ever going to create content that you yourself cannot share, please do not create that content. So your content has to be shareable for it to reach more people. So that's a challenge you can give your digital teams moving forward. So another metric we can use is sentiments. So yes, people are talking about you, but what are they actually saying about you? Is it positive? Is it negative? Is it neutral? And to be in a safe space, you have to have around 60 to 70% of positive sentiments. So this is very good to track month on month, just to see how you're doing as a company. And if you have more negative sentiments than you do neutral or positive sentiments, you need to actually do a deep dive and find out what is that problem that consumers are seeing that maybe you are not tracking. Get to the problem before it turns into a crisis. Then we have video views, or watch time. So you have placed your content on YouTube, you want people to watch, but are they skipping them, like ads? Or are you actually getting people watching all the way to the end? Yeah? So you need to measure at least 30% of your viewers. Your content needs to have at least 30% watch time. So people are not only watching the first 3 seconds, the first 3 minutes, and then they're moving on to the next piece of content. So, and there are different ways, we may not talk about that today, but there are different ways in which you can actually create your content to ensure that you have the viewer's attention all the way from when they click on your piece of content to the end. Then we have CPMs, CPVs, CPEs. Don't worry, these are terms that we can all relate to, it's just acronyms. So CPM is cost per mention, CPV is cost per view, CPE is cost per engagement. So how much are you spending in order to achieve your objectives, and does it make sense? You might have a budget of $1 million, but your objectives are not being reached. Or you might have a budget of $1 million and you're reaching your objectives, whereas your campaign is put in a way that you don't have to spend that $1 million to reach your objectives. So are you optimizing, the kind of money that you're putting, your investment, and is it equal to what you're getting? Another thing we have is ad recall. So this is mostly done through brand lift surveys, and it's best to measure this before a campaign and after a campaign. And the recommended metric for this is have about 10% brand lift within a particular campaign. So when you're doing the surveys, make sure you're doing it right before you start that campaign and right after you end the campaign. So then you'll know how to measure the campaign that I did, what kind of percentage brand lift did I get, yeah? And then we also have targeting. So who are our ads being served to? And this can be based on different segments. It can be psychographic, looking at their interests, their personalities, their lifestyles. It could be based on the demographics. How old are they? What's their gender? Another thing could be that their behavior. What are their buying habits? How do they interact with different brands? Or geographical, where are they located? What kind of neighborhoods? And whatnot. So when you're looking at targeting, for example, for Facebook, it's good to target at least 50 to 70% of the entire target group that you have. That way you'll know that it's going to be effective. Don't just target a very niche kind of group. Make it a little bit broad, but again, not too broad. So it's very good to have your teams define what kind of targets these are before even going to the process of targeting when they're doing the media buying. Yeah, and there's some mistakes we make when we're doing the quality and quantitative KPIs. Sometimes we go wrong is when we're measuring the wrong kind of data. You're very strong on, I need my content to get likes. If you did not know, today you know likes can be bought. So don't have your media agency buying likes just to make you feel happy. Likes should not be the objective of your campaign. Followers should not be the objectives of your campaign. You can grow your page through paid media without having followers as the main objective. Brand awareness can equally grow your page, So focus on things that make sense, like reach, not really likes. And again, failing to specialize when you're forming campaign keywords, don't make them too broad, because when you're doing your social listening, it might carry data from things that are not relevant to what you are actually looking for. So have a very particular set of keywords for each and every campaign. And then the biggest mistake of all is having all this data and not using it to guide the strategies that you're coming up with. Yeah, so I think I'll give it back to Charles.
Yep. So, what Louisa has shown us can be, it looks fairly basic, right? But it's very critical. It's very, very important that we understand what all these, metrics mean, right? From a quality and quantity perspective. If you're a marketer and you deal with social media and all those, this should be the Bible. Then you have all those other nice acronyms, most of them of which I really don't understand. CTE, CTG, UVB, There's so many things, in social marketing, but there's the backbone of what all this, should encompass. Now, I have a cheat sheet. I have a Mwakenya, and this is the Mwakenya I usually use, right, to sense check whether I'm on the right track, right? Making sure that, quality is embedded in everything that we do across all our campaigns. The Mwakenya is a 10-step process, and it's the marking scheme I use for every particular campaign, right? I could check into the campaign at the back end, but backtrack all the way to where the issue was. And if the issue was not really addressed, and by the issue I mean the business challenge, then it really doesn't make sense. It doesn't matter if you're getting, 1 million likes or you're reaching your target, but you could be addressing the wrong issue. So the first step is the background, right? So if you have brand X, right, or company X, right, ask yourself, what are those strategic pillars that you identified in the first place, right? What is it? If it's, say, Jumbo Jet, right, and your strategic pillar was to get more younger guys, right, maybe 18 to 30, to buy more tickets, and at the back end you're seeing your campaign is skewing towards older guys, then you're off strategy, right? So you have to understand what your growth pillars are. And then, of course, your brand story and your vision. So everyone must be aligned. Remember, we are all working as partners. So you have your client, you have agencies, everyone must be pulling in one direction. And this is where you start, right? And then we move to the actual challenge, right? So what is that issue you're really trying to address? If it's to grow awareness for your brand or category, is it to grow relevance? Is it to grow differentiation or uniqueness? What is that challenge that you're going after, right? Is it to distribute more? If you're for, a brand like Nestle, so you need to describe that opportunity or challenge that your brand faces, and then include some initial thoughts. And then, of course, we are all paid by our consumers and customers. If you're not making money, what exactly are you doing? We have to make money at the end of the day, okay? We have to return value back to our shareholders unless you're the shareholder yourself, right? So the money, sales value, grow market share, recruit customers or consumers. That's the business value. If you have any campaign that you're running and you do not have a business value, it's not making sense. And then now, of course, you clarify it down to marketing, specific marketing values. Now, step 6, your audience. Carve out your audience, the person you need to talk to. Describe your target audience. We have target audience and then we have extra, right? Maybe secondary audience, right? You must have a bullseye for you to be as efficient as you can. You must reach targets, okay? It's very, very important. If you're selling, like for the guys who are, I saw the Nestle guys here. If you're selling Kit Kat, do you really know who you're targeting, right? Maybe your core target could be, females, young females, uni females, or college going, or maybe even kids, right? But have that target and keep it tight. And then now you can expand to everyone else. Of course, you have to know how many there are. And then have sight of competition. Have sight of competition, right? So if, let me still use the Kit Kat example. If your target is kids aged between, 10 to 15, right? You must understand what the other guys are doing. What is Kinder Joy doing? I know Kinder Joy because my daughter always asks for it, and it's damn expensive, right? I used to think it was like anywhere, below 50 bob or whatever. I think it's like 300 bob, and it's this small. Huh? It's 150. Oh, it's 150. So whenever I see her walking to the aisle near Kinder Joy, I pull her on this side and show her particles and all those, what we used to have. So, so have a keen eye on competition, what exactly they're doing, right? So are they addressing the same challenge as you are? And then, of course, it's not the first time you're running a campaign. Is there any learning that you're picking from previous campaigns? Have that institutional memory. I've seen so many organizations where you hear, Peter left, and that file was in his computer. Or we can't find the campaign, campaign plan. If you don't pick in learnings from the previous campaigns that you've done, right, then you start afresh. So you need to list any learnings from the previous campaigns, whether it's good or bad. And then, of course, taking seasonalities. The reason why this is very critical is because everyone has seasons. All businesses have seasons. For Cadbury's, it's probably some time towards Valentine's, right? Or somewhere there, or Mother's Day, right? For us, it's upcoming. It's in December, where Sherehe is, is Sherehe, right? I guess for Jumbo Jet as well, it could be somewhere around December, right? Okay, everyone has seasons. So always take into account seasonality and then amplify your campaign when it matters. And then, of course, geography, right? So there's no need of trying to target guys in northeastern Sambu. We know they don't really drink alcohol, so we minimize our targeting there and take it where it matters, in Nyeri. Right? Okay. Right. So you have to be very deliberate about your geography. And then partners. We talked about partners before, right? Identify them on the onset. Do not wait to do the plan and then bring in the partners at the back end. Whether it's influencers or agencies you're working with or content creators, they have to come in at the fore. And the interesting thing with this 10-step approach is that you do everything at the same time, okay? So when you're creating your ad or your campaign or your, visuals or whatever, you already start thinking about how you will deploy them in the back end, right? So whoever is creating for you, because if you mostly deploy in mobile, there's a way you should do it. If it's mostly TV or whatever, there's a way you should do it. If it's Twitter or Instagram, there's a way you should do it, right? So think about the end as you start. So this is my Mwakenya. This is what I use, right? So what I've given you is an overview. There's a lot more that goes into it, but it's an overview of how we should follow follow through all the from the beginning to the end. So will you take us through this, or should I do it?
It's okay.
Okay, all right. So quality. So I mean, quality is key, as we've talked about, right? So what we'll do is we'll take you through a couple of examples where we feel that quality has been embedded all the way from identifying the issue to deployment, right? And you'll always see there's a trend, right? There's a trend. You can know guys who are focused on numbers, and you can know guys who are focused on values, right? Okay. Let's play the video. I swear these guys have been sent. Yeah, they've been sent. Our full presentation was the highlight of videos, and it can't work. No cocktails, right? You drink water after the, no. This is touch? No, I don't think so. There's no sound. So what we wanted to do is, just bring to life what we really mean, about on quality versus quantity. These are beautiful examples. I wish you guys saw them. I don't know how we can get them to you later, but they're amazing. The first one was actually Singleton stories, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I really hope you guys have watched Singleton stories. It's a beautiful, beautiful series of different stories, right. And it's very touching. It's available on YouTube. Just search Singleton stories, then pick whoever you want to watch. We're not forcing you to watch the whole season, but you guys will love it.
Yeah, it's sorry?
Yeah, there's an episode featuring Waithera, very touching story. You see the way she's actually a diva and a powerful woman. So go add views to that one.
Yeah, it's amazing. And that whole concept was based on insights, right? On the onset. So Singleton, shedding share, we are losing share to Jameson and all these other guys. So we sat back and asked ourselves, how do we, create all this content from bottom up, right? And what we came to understand was the fact that authenticity is very key for the guys who consume premium spirits. Being authentic, right? And telling your own story. Being vulnerable. And also being unapologetic. Right? That was the insight. And we carried that value all the way into the campaign, how we deploy, where we deploy, at what time we deploy it, right? It's on Sunday evening, right? I think so.
Yes.
Right? And it's that quality that really worked hard for Singleton. Right now, we can't even, meet supply. The next one was, what was the next one? I think it was Bailey's.
So maybe I can just talk through them real quickly. So for Singleton, we single-handedly picked a particular episode featuring McKenna and Jerry. I don't know how many of you know her. But, what we wanted to do with this case study is, show how we are unapologetically becoming inclusive through and putting the brand at the heart of this. So the goal of this was to actually show how, as a company, we are promoting inclusivity and diversity. And we are leading from the front on this issue. So the objective was to begin to shape the conversation by focusing on the positive aspects rather than what is widely accepted in most African societies. And the case in point is that homosexuality is immoral. So we had to come up with a solution. And so we consulted the human rights and gender specialist, Makenanjeri, to interpret the constitution for us in a way that is bite-sized kind of information that we can actually understand. And there was no programming on the TV that we could actually use to reach these particular kind of audiences. So we co-created with PhD, our media team, and in conjunction with a trusted production house, we created Singleton Stories. It was a talk show hosted by a famous writer. All of you know him by the name of Biko Zulu, and it focused on deep conversations enjoyed over a glass of Singleton. So we managed to run this on Citizen TV, which is one of the top reach stations in Kenya, as well as YouTube, and we teased these episodes on our Facebook and Instagram pages. So the results were actually mind-blowing. That particular episode for Makenanjeri alone, despite all the roadblocks that we went through, it was one of the best performing episodes of season 2, with a total of 169,000 YouTube views and 3.1 million TV views in a period of only 4 weeks. The content reached an average of 1.4 million people on Facebook, 540,000 on Instagram, and it had 611,000 impressions on Twitter, with the highest recording engagement. So through this, we managed to deliver on impact through creative storytelling, which connected emotionally with our consumers and sparked Singleton is very unapologetic conversations on our social media pages and earned media as well. So you see, just back to what Charles was talking about, you have to be authentic when you're creating content. That way you can be able to relate to your consumers. Otherwise, if you're just trying to push an agenda, they'll get lost somewhere between. The other case study we had was on Tusker Malt. So for you guys, for some of you who have been Tusker Malt fans since back in time, there was a time when Eabl changed the park. And by changing the park, we kind of lost trust from our consumers. So this campaign was just trying to win back their trust through sparking conversations that propelled top-of-mind awareness. So the situation was that Tusker Malt suffered from negative impact in the recent past because of lack of consistency, like, for example, that pack change. So it led to the gradual and significant market share loss over the years. This was not only aided by the withdrawal of the embossed bottle and introduction of the less distinctive bottle that was often confused by Tusker Light. So with the optimization of the brewing process that could now ensure a consistent liquid, a campaign was needed to disgruntle Tusker Malt consumer to fall in love with Tusker Malt all over again. So hence, we came up with the campaign, Great Love Stories Never Die. And our consumers ate it. We loved it. So the goal here was to symbolize the optimization of the liquid. The brand made the decision to bring back the well-loved embossed bottle. At the outer and inner, as the outer sign of our inner quality, we thus developed the campaign around the new bottle that would remind our consumers why they actually fell in love with the brand in the first place. So our solution was to reconnect with our consumers through the campaign, and this campaign was particularly launched to woo them and to wow them and to show them that we are back to our best. And this led to an outline charm, warming the hearts of our consumers and letting them know that Tusker Malt was now back to the quality they enjoyed. So I don't know if you guys remember there's a time when out of home we had a bottle of Tusker Malt with a sticky note that had a love story, talking about how much we love you and we miss you. Because indeed we did, you know. And we're glad that you guys loved us as well, because you guys came back. So the results were actually good. Trial went up by 38%. Premium beer volume share rose. So from 2019 October, it was at 2.5%. All the way to January 2020, it rose to 3.72%. Salience was at 1% in December 2019. In February 2020, we were at 2%. And total awareness in December was at 57%. In February, the next year, rose all the way to 64%. So it's actually true, you know. We managed to spark these conversations that were well received by our consumers. And indeed, great love stories never die. Lastly, was the Bailey's Delight campaign. So there's a new variant that was introduced to the market in 2020, around March. So it's been overshadowed by the original Bailey's Delight. Most of the consumers would even compare the liquids. They did not understand that this was a variant. It wasn't taking over the mother brand. But we wanted for it to actually come out and stand by itself. So this is a very good example of how quality is important, because we took a one-day campaign and we got amazing results. So the technique we did here was an innovation by our partners called Blue Robot. So we managed to run a competition experience, which we call the Tweet to Unlock. So for every 100 likes we got on the post that we put up on our Twitter, we managed to gift every 100 like with a hamper that they could actually give to their mom. It was a Mother's Day campaign, so we wanted to show how the brand could fit and be in culture and also be at the heart of the consumer. The results that we had over 1.2 million trend impressions. We had 466,954 tweet impressions. We had 171,000 video views, 47,338 video completions. Remember what we were talking about, your view rate? So imagine all those people managed to watch all through the video. We had 15,000 plus engagements and an engagement rate of 3.35%, which is above the industry benchmark for Twitter at 3%. And we also managed to break the Blue Robot global benchmark for this one campaign that ran on one day. So back to you. Quality and quantity, used wisely.
Yeah. I mean, we had so many other examples, like Rihanna's Fenty, right? For the guys who put the makeup, right? Right. So Fenty by Rihanna is a huge success. They're giving L'Oreal a run for their money, and it is when you go back and try and dissect exactly what they did. They started with the right insight, which was beauty for all. It was very, very interesting. It was what they did. I think they had a concept called 40 Shades of Color, or 40 Shades of something. And the way they did that campaign, all the way from start to end, how they deployed, you can see quality. This campaign in itself, I think, generated almost $100 million in a week or something.
In the first 40 days.
Yeah. That was impressive. We also had other examples. Let me move on. Okay. So, I mean, just to close up, just to close the session, why quality? Why is quality important? The first step is very key, right? So you have to have human values embedded in everything that you do when you're building your campaign. Try and be empathetic. Think about the person who's consuming that media or that, or your content, right? So we connect better. And then brands that pay attention to their audiences are more likely to improve quality of their products. For years, consumers have been telling us to come up with the Balozi can. You remember, right? For years. Balozi is the only brand in the country that doesn't have a can. But now when we went back and looked at all those mentions and pulled them all together, right? These guys have been talking to us almost, every other day, right? So we listen to them, we put out Balozi, and Balozi is one of the best performing cans in the market. So when you listen and pay attention, you can improve your products. And then you also get more for less. Shareable content, and I think the previous group talked about it. Shareable content is free fuel. Free. Like the KRA stuff that is happening right now. Well, now it could have both positive and negative sentiments, but the way they've rolled with that flow, right, they haven't deleted their comments, they haven't blocked anyone and all that. They've rolled with the flow, and it's working for them. It's quite critical to have that in mind, because there's a lot of clutter out there. Everyone has a dog in the fight, but what they say is, it's not about the size of the dog. It's not about the size of the dog in the fight. It's about the size of the fight in the dog. That's what quality brings out, right? And then creating content that is fit for purpose ahead of time. When you're creating, create for the future. If you know you put it in mobile, create for that. If you know you put it in Twitter, whatever, create for that, okay? And then lastly, focus on the right metrics, the ones that Louisa talked about. It's very, very critical. So all these things seem rather obvious, but it's very important to have that checklist when you're running any campaign from start to end. Now, it's more than everything we've talked about, and it's, there are more details that come into it, right? But try and have that empathetic lens whenever you're running your campaigns within social or otherwise, right? Okay. Unlike our team who are not empathetic to us in the Digital and Technology Week, technology is still challenging us, right? I have to roast them, I have to clap back.
Violence, huh?
Yeah, I have to clap back. But that was our discussion for today. We hope it makes sense. Yep. So do we have any questions, or are guys jittery to go up and for Gene o'clock? Any questions? Mm-hmm. Hi, Wanjaro. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So our question is, when you run an ad, specifically about ad recall, after what period does that data still make sense? Yeah, I think it's relative. Of course, it has to be versus the length of the campaign. Okay. So if you're running your campaign for 3 months or 4 months, you still want to milk within those 3 or 4 months. Yeah. And then there's a bit of a lag after that. So by the time you're stopping, you're still reaping the benefits of the campaign. Okay? So ad recall can be done in different ways. It can either be done through Facebook or through whatever, or it can be done face-to-face surveys or online surveys. Ideally, by the time you've completed your campaign, it should be, you should still have some ad recall for at least 2 months or so, or even 3 months. Right? Especially, of course, it depends on the size of the campaign. If it was big, you stretch it longer, right? It depends on the size of the budget and all those kinds of things. But on average, 3 months, right? You should still be able to reap the benefits of the survey, right? Okay. Any other question? Mm-hmm. Maybe give him the mic. That's a good
Can
one.
I take that?
You'll take that.
Yeah. So I'm guessing you're talking about Twitter mostly, right? Because that's where a lot of trendjacking happens. And we have actually seen it even with our own brands. So the advice would be, one, have pinned posts on your promoted trend. You can have a maximum of 5 pinned posts on your, on your promoted trend. And then don't just leave it at that, because Kenyans will be Kenyans. I have a salon that does not have people. I will trendjack you until I get customers, you see? So you can also control that by having, control the conversation. If your brand cannot do maybe like 20 tweets in one day, this is where partners come in. You have influencers who can keep the conversation going on your behalf. So that as long as they're using that particular hashtag and content that is relevant to your brand, then your brand will not get lost within the trend. I hope that answers. Good.
Is that a question, Amma, you're stretching? Oh, you're stretching.
Okay, so
Okay.
I think it's that time when we go ask kila mtu ako na pombe, and then we can now say yes. So thank you so much for listening to us. It's been a pleasure to be in front of you and present what we did. We just hope that you'll take into account what we've presented, and so that your brands can perform better and better moving forward.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, there's a networking session at La Mesa on 15th floor. Please join us on 15th floor at La Mesa for a networking session, please.